Welcome to another expert interview. This week, we're talking to Michael Hall, who is the Senior Content Development Specialist for Catholic Christian Outreach, also known as CCO. CCO is an apostolate based out of Canada, but doing international work. They primarily work on college and university campuses in a methodology that is similar to what Focus has here in the United States. They also start working with parishes several years ago and are now all over the world working with diocesan and parish leadership teams. He's been a missionary with CCO since 2003 and has been directly involved in the training of the missionaries for many years. Recently, Michael authored several books, one of them including a faith study series, Trust, which CCO has in their faith study series, and also one on intentional accompaniment, which is what we talk about in this episode. Michael is an expert evangelist, and he talks about what he means by intentional accompaniment, how we can get beyond the buzzwords, and how we can actually be better evangelists in our methodology of walking with people. I know you're going to enjoy this one. Stay tuned. Michael, thank you for joining us. We had too much fun before I hit the record button. But Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself. We've known each other for several years now, but tell our listeners who may not know who you are, where you are, what you do, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm a missionary with Catholic Christian Outreach up in Canada. So for those that maybe don't know us, kind of a little bit like the focus of the North, if you will. So working with university students primarily. And I've been doing that with CCO for 18 years now. Came right out of my university and I was involved as a student. That's really where I experienced my conversion and really came into my faith was through CCO and just wanted to keep giving back to this, to students to get the same opportunity I've had, and didn't necessarily think I'd be doing it for 18 years, but here I am. I'm originally from Vancouver, BC, so out on the West Coast, just north of Seattle, but now here in Ottawa, the nation's capital, which is where CCO's headquarters are. My job is basically within CCO is I've done a lot of different jobs, but right now it's kind of a combination of writing and teaching and trying to get a lot of our thoughts about evangelization, how you do it, skills, methodologies, all that sort of stuff, get it down on paper. And so that both for the benefit of our missionaries, but also be able to share that with the rest of the church and just kind of get some of our experience that we've gained. CCO has been around for 33 years now. So, we've done this for a little while. So we've learned a few things along the way. We want to be able to share it with everybody.
Yeah. Well, I got a copy of your new book right here.
Yeah. Look at that.
Intentional Accompaniment, an apprenticeship for a new generation of builders. And we're going to talk about that. Love the book, by the way. Good job on
thanks.
That. I had the privilege of getting an advanced copy, and I was like, dude, this is really good because, I'm a practical guy, right? It's very practical. So for all you guys who are listening to this, who like practical stuff like me, how do you go evangelize? How do you what is accompaniment? All that stuff. Yeah. Great book. Now I want to make a comment. You guys are really, you're not the focus of the North. Focus is the CCO of the South. Okay. Because you guys predate now. So Andre Renier, who's one of the co-founders of CCO, who we have we've already interviewed him a couple of months ago, and he's, you guys who are listening can go listen to that interview as well. He likes to always point out that CCO is founded before Focus. And that's important though. I mean, it's something. Focus might have.
The way I kind of think about it is, we're the older brother, but we're only like 5'6", and then our younger brother grew up to be like 6'8".
Yeah, and it works because Curtis is way taller than Andre as well. And we've seen them together, right? And it's a substantial difference.
Yeah. So I mean, and you take population scale into account here, but CCO works with 17 campuses in Canada. We've got we're getting close to about 140, 150 missionaries now on our staff team. And we've started to branch out to be working with some parishes as well, and some different coaching opportunities there, just taking what we've learned on campus and translating that into other contexts. And for us, part of that's we want our alumni to be able to know how to evangelize off of campus. And if we want them to be able to do that, we've got to figure out how. And so we started working with parishes to kind of bring our materials and our methods out there, so that in part, so that we could figure out, well, how do we best equip our alumni? The last statement of our mission statement is to build leaders for the renewal of the world. And we know that's not just going to happen on campus. That's going to happen primarily in the parishes.
Yeah.
That's where the world's going to get renewed. You can light the fire on campus, but they're going to leave campus. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, I love CCO's materials. I think they're some of the best in the church. I've used them myself, with small groups, and I love the books you guys are putting out right now. So tell me a little bit about this new book, Intentional Accompaniment. You call it an apprenticeship for a new generation of builders. Tell me why you wrote it, why other people should read it.
Yeah. So it's the idea of intentional accompaniment has been something, that term's been one we've been tossing around within just our work for probably 6 or 7 years now. Kind of fresh on the heels of when Pope Francis started talking about the idea of the art of accompaniment and Evangelii Gaudium. That then accompaniment became a really popular term. Everybody started talking about accompaniment. But like many things, we didn't necessarily know how to do it, but we were talking a lot about doing it, and we all kind of understood it's important to do it. So this book was really trying to look back over our 30 plus years of experience within our movement and saying, okay, what are the principles that we've learned? But also, what is just some of the practical things that we've been doing, and how do we start to apply that into a model that helps you know how to walk with people from the very beginning of just building a relationship of trust, all the way to the point where you're launching them out as a missionary disciple who's ready to go out and affect the church, and to kind of become your co-laborer. As one who is acting as a missionary disciple, somebody who's going to be your co-laborer, who's going to go out there and work alongside you. Your Paul and Barnabas type relationship there.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of these phrases you used here, because this is important, because you talk about intentional accompaniment, and you and I have talked about this previously, why you use this. Explain to our listeners why intentional accompaniment. What does that phrase get at that maybe is missing if we just say accompaniment?
I think if you just say accompaniment, if you don't qualify it, what you might end up doing is just kind of going on a wandering journey with people. And as they wander, you just kind of, Pope Francis uses what I think is a beautiful term, the idea of spiritual closeness.
Yeah.
But you can be spiritually close to people as they wander into all kinds of weird places. And we don't just want to be close. We want to actually lead them on a journey. We want to point them to the Lord. And so we felt it was important to use this term intentional. And it builds a little bit on, intentional has also become a very popular word with the work that Sherry Waddell's done with forming intentional disciples. But the intentionality behind it, I know I have a hope for this person. My hope is that you're going to encounter Jesus. So I don't just want to be close to you, but actually I want to be close to you as I walk alongside you to a particular goal. Yeah. That's Jesus. So it's not even a goal, it's to a person, and it's to an encounter. So I want to walk with you to conversion. And then once you've experienced conversion, there's a shift in the intentionality, but it's still an accompaniment that now I want to walk with you. Now that you've met him, now you want to walk as his disciple. So now I want to walk alongside you in your discipleship, and particularly looking at, I want to walk with you as you grow in holiness and as you grow in mission, so that you become that missionary disciple, which again is another popular term that we're using, but that's what the goal should be. I mean, I kind of long for the day when missionary disciple becomes a redundant term, because just being a disciple means you're missionary. But for now, we've got to qualify it. So we want missionary disciples who are out there engaging in the mission of evangelization, but also who are growing in holiness and becoming the saints not only that they're called to be, but they have to be if they're going to be missionary. Yeah.
Yeah. So these terms really are getting at something deeper than what we could, if we just use a company, just use disciple. Unfortunately, I think that people sometimes define those differently than maybe what the church really wants.
Yeah.
But you also use the word apprenticeship. Tell me about that.
So that was actually a late in the writing process that came up. We were working on a whole other analogy before, but that was actually one where I was kind of taking it to prayer and saying, Lord, just something isn't quite sitting right. And he reminded me um, of the idea that I think it's in the directory for catechesis that talks about that we're called to have everybody's meant to be initiated into an apprenticeship in the Christian life. That's supposed to be in initiatory catechesis, right? It's that idea that after you've experienced conversion, now you need to get into this apprenticeship in the Christian life. And it was that phrase that really kind of caught me. And then that brought me back to, and it was really the Lord kind of reminded me of something that St. John Paul II shared in Toronto at World Youth Day. And of course, that was very particular to us as Canadians. It's not very often we have a Pope who comes to Canada. Mm-hmm. And he was, but speaking to the world at the same time, but doing it on our soil. And he talked about that he was calling for a new generation of builders. Mm. And I kind of thought about that. It was okay, a builder. Well, a builder makes me think of a construction trade. Mm-hmm. And what do they go through? They go through an apprenticeship. That's how you learn. But an apprenticeship is very particular. It's not just sitting in a classroom and somebody tells you, this is how you do carpentry and now go and be a carpenter. You go out there and you have a master craftsman who shows you what to do and stands there with you as you start actually doing the craft that you're mm-hmm. trying to train in. And they're right there to say, okay, that's great. And here's a little tip on how you could do this. It's very hands-on. While it's also, you spend time in a classroom and you learn and all the things you need to know in that trade, but there's somebody who is right there alongside you, who knows what they're doing and is going to show you the way. Mm. So I started thinking about, well, if we needed this new generation of builders, well, we had about 800,000 people that day who were there, listening to John Paul II, but we didn't have 800,000 new builders that stepped out of that day. Yeah. Well, what was it they needed? They needed somebody to show them how. They needed an apprenticeship to become that new generation of builders. So that's where those kind of two came together, is that, okay, we need to then, if we're looking at initiatory catechesis, to use our more, mm-hmm. Catechetical language, and we're trying to get people into an apprenticeship in the Christian life, well, yeah, that's what we need. We need to accompany them through this apprenticeship so that they're going to grow into the missionary disciples that they're called to be.
I love the language because you're putting a face to the buzzwords. Something behind it, because a lot of times what we do is we just toss out the buzzwords. I could probably go chop this video up and just use buzzwords and we could just, we could kill it. We, pay ourselves $1 for every buzzword and
absolutely
make a drinking game out of it. But, here's the thing. I think the principles all apply, right? You and I have similar principles that we're trying to apply in this stuff, and the language helps us to apply the principles. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, right, Michael, is we have a lot of leaders who never had an apprenticeship with somebody else.
Yes. So
now they're being called to help others go and do this work. They're in a position of authority. They're in a position that could lead. It could be a pastor, it could be a DRE, it could be, a director of evangelization, or it could be just your average Catholic who wants to be a better evangelist. Mm-hmm. How do you start doing that if you haven't had anybody do it with you?
Start there. How do you start apprenticing people if nobody's shown you how?
Yeah. It's like, how do you become an electrician when you have an electrician, a company, that's supposed to be doing electrical work, but you've never been apprenticed at it. You've just kind of learned the concepts of it.
I would say one part of it is just start doing it. Mm-hmm. Just like, it's a little bit different than working as an electrician. You can actually just start being an evangelist. You can just start sharing your faith. You can just start leading a small group, using some of the great materials that are out there, and, CCOs for sure. And there's lots of other great materials out there. Like, go and just do those things and start learning from that experience. But I think as well, like, seek out somebody who can be your big brother in that time. Like, look for that mentor. You haven't had it before, but there's people out there. Like, go and find that, so that there is somebody to walk with you, both like somebody who can walk alongside you as a brother, as kind of a peer. That's really important, but also like that mentor sort of person, the person you can look to and be like, okay, you've done this before. You've gone places I haven't gone. It is so important. I mean, in a way that hasn't answered the question, because basically you said, what do I do if I haven't had a mentor? And I said, go find a mentor. Yeah. But really that is kind of what it boils down to, is we do need those people alongside. And there's lots of people who have that experience out there.
Yeah.
This is where we need to continue to grow the community of missionary disciples who are connected to each other, so that you can find those mentors a little more easily. You don't feel like you're out on an island on your own trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also a couple other, I've told folks, echoing back what you just said, absolutely just go do something. Don't wait. Don't make an excuse anymore. Just go do it, try it. And if you fail, you fail. And the Lord's pleased with your desire, right? And learn from it and try to do something better. Because a lot of folks might be in a situation where it's difficult to find a mentor. And it might be that they have to do it through some kind of programmatic training or online community or something else, where they have to seek out resources that might not be local. And that's okay if it's for now. But ultimately what we want is local people doing local evangelization, building up local builders. And that just takes time. I mean, you think about the folks who started modern apostolates, a lot of them didn't have mentors, or they had mentors that were not Catholic, some of them who, evangelized them and they were Protestant, and then they came back to the church. So the story is going to be different, right? So
absolutely.
So I want to switch here to a different concept. Now, in the book, you talk a lot about prophetic listening, and I know this is a concept that has become popular at CCO.
Yes,
and I've talked to several people at CCO about it. But explain to to others listening, what do you mean by this, and how does it help you become a better evangelist?
Well, and I think this actually kind of goes to the previous question we're answering too. Like, how do you do this if you don't know? Well, pray.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have a really strong prayer life, and you let the Lord lead. And that's really what prophetic listening is about, is letting the Lord lead your evangelization. So we would describe it really as that I've kind of put it this way. We believe that the Lord wants to speak to you and I in our prayer life. I think most Catholics, probably most Catholics who are watching this, we believe that the Lord is a personal God. He speaks to you. He speaks to me. When I sit down to pray, sit down to read the scriptures, that he's going to come and speak into my life. But we don't necessarily translate that same thing into our mission, that we don't think he wants to speak into that we're kind of on our own. That doesn't follow. Like, if he is this personal God, if I think about it this way, like, the Lord is in a relationship with me, and he wants a relationship with that person I want to reach out to.
Yeah.
And he wants that relationship way more than I want it for that person. His love is infinitely greater than anything I could ever try to muster up. So he wants a relationship with that person, and he's asking me to be a part of it through my accompaniment of them. And I know he's got a plan for that person and the steps that he wants them to take. Doesn't it make sense that he would want to let us in on the plan? And that's what prophetic listening is he's letting us in on what the next step is, and saying, as we come to him, he's going to give us insight in our prayer time, both like separate, like as I'm praying and preparing for things, but also just in the moment that the Holy Spirit will come to you and give you an insight, give you something to say as you're speaking with somebody, as you're leading a small group. That he's always present, and that he's the one who's therefore leading our evangelization. It's not about us. We need to have great programs. We need to have well-prepared people. All those things are important. But the most important thing is that we have people who are connected to the Holy Spirit, who are leading through the Spirit. It reminds me of in Evangelii Nuntiandi, when Paul VI talks about the idea that we need to let the Holy Spirit be the decisive inspirer of all our plans and activities in the missionary life. Yeah. To paraphrase there, but that's the basic idea. And that, to me, that really encompasses what prophetic listening is all about. So the main, practical side of that is that basically you spend time praying about the mission that you're engaged in, and about the individual people, and saying, Lord, what do I need to know? What do you need to show me? And maybe it'll be, it can kind of come about in all kinds of different ways. But a story I'd like to share is I remember working with a guy, and I knew he was living in a situation he shouldn't be living in. He was living with his girlfriend. We're both young guys at the time. And he was just coming into faith. He was actually in RCIA, and so this was all new to him. Yeah. And I knew I started to feel in my prayer, and just logically knew this as well. Like, at some point we're gonna have to address the fact that he's living in this situation. I don't want to talk about this. This is such an awkward conversation. I don't want to go there. But not only do I know that it has to happen just in my mind, but I'm starting to feel it in my prayer as well, that, okay, this conversation is going to have to happen. And I feel like the Lord is starting to prepare me for it. But I don't know what to do with that. I don't want anything to do with it. Now, he starts preparing me for it. And then out of the blue one day, my friend comes to me and says, hey, I need to talk to you. I'm starting to get this feeling that maybe I shouldn't be living with my girlfriend. What do you think about that? Now, instead of being caught off guard and being like, oh no, I didn't, but I felt like the Lord had prepared me by just giving me that hit, that insight, that little hint. It wasn't so clear, like, and you will say this and this and this in response. It was just like, hey, just as a heads up, this is going to have to come up. Now, I thought he was prompting me that I was going to have to raise this really hard issue. And that might be the case in many scenarios where you have to be the one to raise it at an appropriate time. But in this case, he was preparing me for something that was coming, that he was already doing. And this is the point of prophetic listening. He's already at work in that person's life. So I just need to kind of figure out, what are you up to? And what are you asking me to do about it? As the accompanier, as the missionary in this scenario. What are you up to and what do you want me to do?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it's one of these things where I have one of the charisms that I've discerned that God has given me is prophecy. And prophecy, for those who don't know the charismatic kind of definition of it, first of all, a charism is a gift of the Holy Spirit given for others, right? It's not necessarily for us, but it's going to manifest itself in different ways in each individual too. And the way it manifests itself in my life is I get this desire to tell people things that God wants them to hear. Now, it may not be that I want to say it. And it's kind of what you were, having to go through there. So I feel what you were feeling when you were saying that. It's like, oh my gosh, why, Lord? But it's a deep conviction, right? It's a conviction. I need to do this. I don't necessarily want to do it, but I need to do this because it's the right thing to do. And you get convicted because it's the right thing to do. And then it's a matter of choosing it, right? Because that's the hard part, right? The hard part's really actually going out and doing the hard work of an evangelist, which is having difficult conversations, preaching the gospel in uncomfortable situations, making the initiation with somebody else when they might turn you down, those kind of things. It's got some risk to it. Wouldn't you agree? There's some risk, Michael, to being a great evangelist.
Absolutely. You're anytime we're bringing the Lord's truth, we know that it can be hard. We know it's beautiful. We know it's always loving. It's always good. It's always merciful. But I mean, we all know it. We feel it in those times when we're challenged in our own faith life. So we know that that's going to be the experience for others as well. So we have to be, we have to have engage all the gifts, all the virtues, prudence and all those things have to be engaged, while at the same time, boldness. That we can't hide behind prudence saying, well, I wouldn't want to offend, therefore I'll never say anything. That's not going to help anybody. But at the same time, we can't be a loose cannon and just say whatever comes off the top of our head either. Like there's
that's my problem.
That comes with that. That could be all of our problems, right?
Well, each of us has weaknesses that we got to deal with. And one of my personal weaknesses is sometimes I'm too sarcastic, or I verbalize things, that I shouldn't, whatever. So, and yours is probably, you're just too dang nice, Michael. That's, it's Canadian.
I'm just going to be too quiet. Yeah. I'm going to be less likely to say the thing, but I should.
An introverted Canadian who's a great evangelist. That's what I love. Now, one of the things I think that Catholics struggle quite a bit with is understanding two things. One is that making a disciple is not the end of the story, right? That we're supposed to help and mission people. But before that, even getting to the missioning and the maturation of a disciple so that they can go out and do the same thing we're trying to do with them, it's getting them to the point of conversion where they actually have a choice to say, I choose to follow Jesus Christ, to put him at the center of my life. I believe in him, and to offer that opportunity and to help them get there. This is conversion, right? I mean, conversion when we turn our lives over to Jesus Christ, where everything changes. It's kind of the tipping point, if you will, when we move from evangelization into discipleship, because one becomes a disciple by being converted to Jesus. Now, this initial conversion, you guys have a great diagram of kind of the hourglass diagram. I love that one when you guys come up. I've stolen that a couple of times myself. So thanks for coming up with that, Michael. So you called it, though, in your book, this conversion to Jesus, right at that kind of that middle point where I'll have to put the hourglass up on the screen for people. I'll get the hourglass. If you give me permission, I'll use that diagram and I'll put it up on the screen right now.
Absolutely.
But at that point, you call it the hinge of intentional accompaniment. Why the hinge of intentional accompaniment? What are you trying to get at there?
Well, because it's either geared towards bringing someone to conversion or geared to helping them begin to live their life flowing from conversion. But that's everything flows to conversion or flows from conversion. Like it is the purpose of the Christian life is to experience conversion, right? Like it's the purpose of just life in general is to encounter the Lord and then live out of that and then experience that ongoing daily conversion that we need to have in our lives. But it all has to start somewhere, and that starts with that initial conversion. So yeah, that's what we call it the hinge. Like it just, if there's no conversion, then you can't move forward. And that's a mistake I think we often make is we start, it's again, one of those buzzwords we can add to the list, right? That we catechize before we evangelize. Like
cheers.
Yeah, exactly. Put it on the list. There we go. Drink up. But it's true. It's cliche, but it's true. Like we do a lot of moving people forward in their catechetical understanding, even in mission, without having confirmed that actually they have a relationship with the Lord. Or we assume they have a relationship with the Lord, and so we skip all the parts, all the parts about helping them encounter Him. We just kind of gloss over it and say, oh, well, they're going to church, therefore they must have encountered Jesus. Well, not necessarily. I mean, any of us who've been in mission, the ministry for any period of time, we know that's just not the case.
Yeah. And that's a dangerous assumption.
It's really dangerous.
Yeah.
And we see it sometimes as a courtesy.
Yeah.
It's almost like I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. And it's almost like, well, I don't want to judge you or think less of you as a Christian, or have you think that I think less of you because I'm trying to bring you to this basic thing. And it's not that. It's just that it's so fundamental that we need to confirm that every person that we come across is given the opportunity to be in a relationship with the Lord, and even if they look like they're living that out, to make sure that they are.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that helps, I think, with a lot of folks is defining your terms well. And what I tell people is what makes one a Christian is baptism. What makes one a Catholic is baptism in the Catholic Church. The fullness of that then brought forth in confirmation. So you might have a political leader who is living very far from the faith and supporting abortion. That person is still a Catholic and still a Christian. The question is, how is their communion with the church currently established or not established, right? What is their state of their communion with the church and with Jesus Christ? Now, a disciple, though, is different. A disciple is not necessarily somebody who is just baptized. It's somebody who has chosen in faith to follow Jesus and put them at the center of their life. So that is different because it's a choice. That's why we keep using this word intentional, right? Mm-hmm. So with intentional accompaniment and conversion and all this stuff, you can be a Christian and can be a Catholic and not be a disciple.
Absolutely.
So if I make the assumption, Michael, that somebody is a disciple, what does that do to my work of accompaniment with them? If I'm going to, just assume that, right? It kind of undercuts it. Would you agree?
100%, because if you look at the model, which you'll hopefully have a chance to put it up for people, but if you look at the bottom half of it, it's all about how do you lead someone to that conversion point. Mm-hmm. And then everything changes in the way that you are, what your focus is after conversion. But if you start focusing on the after conversion things with somebody who hasn't yet actually said, I want to follow the Lord, you're training for them for something that they haven't even said they want to do yet. So it loses all its relevance because you're speaking to them in a language that actually doesn't meet them in the situation where they find themselves. Yeah. They haven't said, I want to follow Jesus, but you're talking to them like, well, now since you said you want to follow Jesus, here's what you should do next. Mm-hmm. And hopefully what they're going to say to us is, whoa, I haven't said I want to follow him, but often they don't. And so then we just keep talking to them as if they've said it. And they kind of go, well, I don't really understand what's going on. And then they say, well, church isn't relevant to me.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't made it relevant.
That's right. Yeah.
Because we haven't actually tried to figure out, well, where are you in your faith journey? Where are you with the Lord right now? And am I actually speaking to you in a way that meets you where you find yourself?
Yeah. So we've talking. I'm making up words. We've talked about several different places where Catholics struggle. Are there any other places in this methodology or this kind of scheme where you say, okay, this is a Catholic weak point? We're not very good about this, moving this person from A to B or from this place to this place or doing this act of evangelization or discipleship. Can you identify any other weak points of Catholic methodology right now for us?
There's a little alliteration we use in the book. We talk about people programs and paraclete. Paraclete first being the Holy Spirit. This little alliteration. Those words just do not.
We can't easily. Talk. It's all the
apparently
coffee.
Not.
Yeah, coffee.
Yeah, we're gonna blame it on that. But I got to give credit where credit's due. That's Angèle Renier, who's one of our co-founders. That was her. She brought that to me in the process of writing the book. She's like, hey, I just got this little insight. I think it'd be really helpful. And she said it, and I was like, yes, this is brilliant. I got to use that. And now I use it all the time. But the basic idea there that you have to merge together those three elements, that we're evangelizing people, and we do it using programs, but programs aren't the point, and that the Paraclete, the Holy Spirit, is driving everything. And I think what often we end up doing is that we put the program first, and we try to bring people through a program instead of leading the people using the program. So it's a people through program, as I think the mentality that I'd want to encourage is that we're in a time where we have so many great resources out there. And that's like, it's a real blessing that we have, not only that we have all these resources, but they're so easily accessible to us. That makes bringing people into great Orthodox teaching probably easier than it's ever been.
Yeah. But
too often what we end up doing is we're really hoping that I can just put on like Bishop Barron Word on Fire and he'll do the work for me.
Yeah.
And I just got to sit back and make sure some people show up. Or even when I think about like our CCO faith studies, you're meeting with a small group of people, but if your goal is to just make sure I'm a really good faith study leader, that I know the material well, and then I can explain it well, you're kind of missing the point. And the material will hopefully do what it's meant to do and still connect with people. But even better is if you're actually looking at that faith study and saying, okay, I got 5 people in this group. What's going on in Johnny's life right now? Like what's going on in Sally's heart at this moment? Not just how's the group doing, but like, let's talk about each individual person, because the goal is not to lead a program well. The goal is to reach individual hearts. And that program is the tool in the hand of the missionary.
Yeah.
And I think it's in a way, it's a subtle shift, but it makes the world of difference in trying to actually reach people, as opposed to just run some good programs. Even if you're planning like a 100 or 1,000 person event, you can still have that mentality of, am I just planning this for a whole bunch of people, or are they like 100 individuals who are coming? And then how do I make sure that I'm actually creating this event that is going to not only just try to reach each one of those people through like maybe words from the stage or something like that, but how do I design, the way that my volunteers are going to work, and the way that we're going to meet in small groups or something like that everything is designed around reaching the individual person, and making sure that each person gets it and has the opportunity to encounter Christ. Those differences, if we can just make those shifts, I think it can make a world of difference. And I think we see it, in our work for sure, the difference between just leading a faith study versus leading the people and using the faith study as a tool for that relationship that kind of drives the relationship.
Yeah. And I think it also helps protect us against making people into the project, right?
Yes.
And kind of using them for our own fruitful ministry, right? Or getting the numbers or whatever else it is. It's actually loving them right where it is. And then understanding that program being a tool can sometimes even need to be set aside. I mean, I've using CCO's faith studies, run it with a group we'd come in a day and you could tell there's a guy, he's just like forlorn and he's suffering. And we start talking about it and we never picked up the faith study, right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
he is, the point is now we're going to pour into him for this time that we're together because he needs us. He doesn't need the faith study, right? The tool at this point is a tool, and sometimes you got to set it aside. Yeah. Michael, this has been enlightening. Beautiful. I really enjoyed our conversation. If folks want to learn more about CCO, what you're doing, how to get your book, faith studies, all that jazz, where do they go?
Well, so you can find all kinds of stuff about CCO at our website, which is cco.ca. So again, being Canadian, that's cco.ca. Our books are available there through our store, which is just store.cco.ca. There's also an American distributor that you can get the link through our store. You can click there and it'll take you to the American distribution company, so that for all our American friends, you don't have to pay the shipping from Canada, but you can get the shipping locally. And there you go. And then you can get your hands on the actual physical stuff.
Yeah. And I got the whole faith study series over my right shoulder back here. So you guys got great materials, and it's good talking to you, my friend. God bless.
Yeah. Good talking to you too.